Đấy, xong rồi đây, ra đây.
Sales, selling, and success. So get ready with the notes, and then we will be joining her after from our BNI member.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lê Lương, CEO of Luvina Software, one of the top 10 leading ICT companies in Vietnam. My company has 17 years of experience in the field of software outsourcing for the Japanese market. We have more than 700 professional staff with CMMI Level 3 and ISO 2701. I want to bring our software services to customers all over the world. 日本の皆さん、ルビナソフトウェアのオフショア開発サービスをぜひ活用してください。日本の拠点であるルビナソフトウェアジャパンは川崎市の溝の口駅にあるので、ぜひ気楽にご連絡してください。Thank you for your attention.
Hi, I'm Dr. Cindy McGovern, and I am so excited to have you join me for today's BNI Masterclass, The Art of Differentiation. I am on a journey to help people to tell their story better. You are amazing, and you have amazing superpowers, and we have to be able to get others to tell your story too. And that, my friends, is sales. Now, I never wanted to be in sales. I thought it was icky. And now I'm known as the first lady of sales. Go figure that out. But the reason that this happened is because after all these years of grad school and communication degrees, I realized I'd been selling my entire life. And you know why? Because I've been selling myself. Every job interview, every interaction, you are selling who you are and the mark that you are leaving on this world. So really, every job really is a sales job. But it's more important that you're selling your personal brand. And that, my friends, starts with differentiating yourself. So today, we're going to talk all about networking and differentiation and how you're going to stand out from the pack. We're going to discuss what makes you different. And it's a little hard to describe sometimes when you're doing a similar job to someone else or you're specializing in an industry. But let me tell you, you've got talents. We're going to elevate them. And we're going to get others to tell that story. And last but certainly not least, we're going to have a little homework assignment. It's the old college professor in me. I can't help myself. We're going to talk about creating your differentiating statement, a way for you to articulate what you bring to the table in a concise way that others can use as well. So let's get started. Networking and differentiation is kind of the foundation of sales, right? And networking, as you know, is sales. But it all begins with knowing what your personal brand is. How do you want to be known in the world? How do others describe you? What do you want your brand to be? And it all starts with an introduction. When you're sitting down for coffee, when you're at your BNI group, when you're at any event, are you introducing who you are, where you work, and what your title is? Or are you introducing what you do, how you impact others? Tell that story. Don't sell the product, sell the problem that it fixes, right? We've all heard that in sales. So don't sell what you do, sell how it impacts others. And that, my friends, is going to help you to differentiate yourself from the competition. It's super important in today's day and age to stand out. And all kinds of industries are becoming more and more almost commoditized to a degree. And the sad part is everybody's becoming an expert online, right? So people are researching, they say, oh, I know what you do because you do blank. Well, that's not really true. We've been diminished to titles. So we have to yell, scream, and shout more than ever, hey, this is what we do and this is why it's amazing. And so part of what I want you to really embrace is what really makes you special. What makes you different? What makes you remembered by others? And what's the part that you want them to remember? I talk about music a lot. I'm a big music fan. And so you think about a song that you love. What's the first part of the song that comes to mind? Is it the first line? Is it the last line? It's probably the chorus. So I want you to think about your title as the first line, maybe your company as the last line, but the chorus is what you bring, how you stand out. So how do we decide what makes you actually different? And this is a hard exercise for some people to really sit and embrace the fact that you are different, because it feels like you're bragging. You're not bragging. You can't help others if they don't know what your superpowers are. So we need to start telling people the story. So a couple of things that you can do to think about how you are different than everybody else is, do your customers take you for granted? What are the things that you just naturally do that they don't have to ask for, that you just poof, wave your magic wand and they get done? That's something that makes you different. How you do what you do and how it impacts your customer. What is the impact of all of those things, all of those favors that you do for your customer, all of those service things? And I have to talk about the word service for just one moment. If I could, I would actually ban the word. And the reason is because everybody says, I give great service. What is that? What does that even mean? I agree, you probably give great service, but service is defined by the recipient. So how are you articulating what this service is? Is it that you give great proactive communication? Is it that you stay on top of things and it saves me time? What is it that really you're couching as service? And I think that if you're describing yourself as giving great service, you're doing yourself a disservice, because your competition is using the same story and we know you're better. So we want to make sure that you're truly articulating what makes you different and the specifics of that. And here's another thing when it comes to your customers, don't wait for them to figure it out. These are busy people. They're used to being spoiled by you. So don't wait for them to start to figure out, oh gosh, these are the 10 things that so-and-so does that makes it different for them. Make sure they know the specifics. You can even say, I love being able to do this for you because I know it saves you time and you're so busy. Plant that little seed. How great is that, right? But I want you to think about truly how you want to be remembered. The chorus you want them to sing when you're not in the room. So we need to talk about your differentiating statement. And a lot of people will say, well, gosh, Dr. Cindy, is that an elevator pitch? Absolutely not. I do not believe in pitching. And the reason I don't believe in pitching is because nobody wants to be pitched. Everybody hates to be pitched, as a matter of fact. But we like to buy. And so our job as salespeople and as master connectors is to make sure that we're able to tell the story in a way that invites someone else to dialogue. So my version of a differentiating statement is more of an invitation to a discussion. It's a statement that gets them thinking and wanting to ask you a question in response. So it's not that old elevator speech, but kind of a little scripty-ish. Now, if you ever worked with me, you know I do not believe in scripts. I am not a fan of them because I think they sound, well, scripted. I think they're someone else's words. My goal for you in this masterclass is to find your own words. Don't let somebody else write your story for you. Pick up that pen and write it yourself. You're the one that's leaving an indelible mark on this world. So let's make sure the words that people are using to describe you are the ones you want them using. And this particular version of a differentiating statement is also something that's going to get them to kind of stop dead in their tracks, because the other differentiating statements or elevator pitches that you've heard before probably were things like, we give good service, we do this, blah, blah, blah. We've all heard it, guys. You want to tell them something that's in it for them. Start with them. Givers gain. We all know that. So the way that we're going to talk about your differentiating statement and the way that we're going to craft it is to make sure that you know how you're impacting them, and you're going to lead with that first. The key to any differentiating statement is really just to further the conversation. It's not an opportunity to just sit there and pitch them in an elevator or get them to sign a contract. It's not even selling yet. It's just an invitation to a dialogue. So I want to share with you my differentiating formula. And this is where the old professor in me comes out once again, because this is the homework assignment. But I really want you to walk yourself through what your superpowers are first. If I were you, I'd take out a pen and a paper and I would write as many things as I could. What is it that you do that impacts your customer? What are the things where you've saved somebody's bacon recently? Where have you gone over and beyond the call of duty? Look at all of those things. And then from there, start to put them into categories. Truly, categories. Now, you're not allowed to use the service category, but categories of what it does for them. It saves them time. It gives them peace of mind. Look at those kinds of things, because that's going to start to dictate how you want to craft your differentiating statement. Now, I want to go back to something I said earlier around how you introduce yourself, because that's actually the first part of your differentiating statement is, who are you? So the way that you want to tell your story is not some giant bio of your company or how many years you've been in the business. In a differentiating statement, it's who you are. I'm Dr. Cindy. Easy. You could say, I'm Dr. Cindy. I do this. But it's quick and concise. And one of the things that I think a lot of people make a mistake on when they're trying to differentiate themselves is they go right into a company bio. You want to talk about a snooze fest? Nobody wants to hear a company bio. Let them ask you for that, right? Don't lead with that. But if you're leading with your company bio, what ends up happening is you haven't gotten to the meat of the conversation. You haven't gotten to the part that matters to them until way late. So they may have stopped listening before you even get to the most important part, which is number 2, what's in it for them. I call this the treat. Now, I am obsessed with my dog Biscuit. Anybody that knows me knows I have become that woman I used to make fun of. I used to giggle about the people that have their dogs in sweaters, and I will fully admit in front of all of you here today, that is now me. But my dog Biscuit, I think, is kind of unique, and I think your dogs are too, in that he understands words, but he has what I would call selective hearing. I can say, oh, you're a good boy, and oh, do you want to go do this? But the minute I say something like park, outside, walk, or that wonderful word treat, all of a sudden he stops whatever he's doing in his tracks, turns his head, and looks right at me. So your dog probably does this too. Now, I am not saying that your customers and your community are like dogs. However, we are beings and we are looking for what is in it for us. So take a lesson from your pets. Let's lead with what's in it for them. Get their attention first and then go into the other stuff. Because without their attention, you're basically just giving a monologue, and that's not what you're trying to do here either. So when you start crafting your differentiating statement, this is why I want you to start with the superpowers, because I want you to think of the impact those superpowers have, and that's the treat. It's what you really bring to them. And then the third part is how you help, which is, yes, you get it. You get to say your superpowers now. You get to talk about how you actually help them, what it is that you do that does create that impact, how you're going to help them solve their problem, how you're going to make their life easier, how you're going to save them time or make them more money or help them with a problem. But it's only after you've told them the treat. And then the last step of the differentiating statement is actually the most important and actually the most often skipped step. It's the ask. What are you asking them to do? What are you inviting them to do? Are you inviting them to have coffee? Are you inviting them to dinner? Are you inviting them to an event? Are you inviting them to your B&I group? Make sure the ask is there. And this is not a statement part, it is a question. So it actually needs to have a question mark at the end of it. And I think a lot of people think this is a statement. We'd like to have you join us. That's not an ask. Remember, the differentiating statement formula is designed to be an invitation to discussion. You want to invite them. So you're going to have to ask a question so that they're willing to respond. So I want to go through the formula with you one more time because this is really important. And I'm going to share with you a really common mistake that a lot of folks make when they're crafting their differentiating statements. So the steps are this. Number one, who are you? Not the bio of your company. Who are you? Tell me quick and concise. Step two, the treat. What you bring to the table for them. It's all about them. What is the impact of what you do on their world? Lead with that. Number three, this is where your superpowers come in, how you help. You can give yourself a little tiny commercial here, but this is not a section where you start to give your bio. This is just, this is how I'm going to help. And then you move right into step four, which is the ask itself. Who are you? What they get, which is the treat, how you help, and then the ask. So let me share a common mistake with you. A lot of people mix up the middle two parts of the formula, and there's a reason for that. That's actually the way our brains work. We're waiting for the part that has to do with us. So this is a total human thing, and in every course I give, in every WebEx I give, this is the most common mistake. People want to say, who are you, how you help, what they get, and then the ask. Totally wrong order. And the reason is exactly why you want to do it that way. That's the way your brain works. Your brain is searching for the part that has to do with you. Well, guess what? You're calling on other humans, so their brain works the same way too. So you want to lead with the part that's in it for them, which is the treat. Now, when you practice this, because you will, right? You're going to go home, write this out, and then you're going to practice, of course. I have a couple of hints for you to think about. Number one, when you write it out, it will not at all sound like the way you talk. We write differently than the way we talk. So be kind, give yourself a little bit of grace in this, and go ahead and write it out and just test it out. Then say it out loud. Now, when you say it out loud, you're going to first sound like you've got marbles in your mouth because, again, we do not speak the way that we write. So that's where that grace comes in again. Edit it. And then, here's the big one. I want you to record yourself. Yeah, I said it. I know, super scary. And if you're like me, most of us don't like to hear a recorded voice, but let me tell you why this is important. Because however you say this statement is how the world hears it. You want to make sure it's a good one. So think of it like this. You're all in sales. We already agreed on that, right? And let's say that you're reaching out to someone you don't know, and you're going to invite them for coffee. Well, this is a great invitation, and this makes a great voicemail, actually. So if you're reaching out and you're going to say this on a voicemail, think about how quick and concise it needs to be. Because a voicemail, I'm going to tell you these days on the iPhone, I'm not listening past about 30 seconds. So you've got to make it really quick, really easy, and really definitive of what's in it for them, so they're going to want to call you back. So I want you to just test that out, really rehearse it, and then, here's the hard part. I want you to call someone else that you know. Maybe a colleague, maybe a friend, maybe even a client that you trust, but I want you to test it out on somebody. Because the next piece that people struggle with is that they're using words that don't sound like them. Now, in the industries that you all are in, I'm going to bet there's a lot of jargon. We love an acronym in industries, right? And the people in our industry totally get it, and it makes sense to them, but does it make sense to the person you're calling on? Will they understand some of those pieces? So be really careful about the word choice that you use. And then the other part of this is, for some reason, when people work on this exercise, they try to get really formal about it. And they try to say, oh, well, I'd like to speak with you on blah, blah, blah. If I ever call you and say, I want to speak with you about something, trust me, it's not me calling, it's somebody else. I would call and I'd say, hey, I want to chat with you about something. I'm very informal. This is the kind of conversation I'd be having with you if I were sitting in your living room right now. So make sure it sounds like you in the word choice as well as the cadence. Now, there's another little tidbit trick in here. Make sure you are articulating all of the words. And this is something, so I'm originally from the South, and I actually have a bit of a Southern accent, and I have to really be careful when I'm on the phone or when I talk fast. When I talk fast, that Southern accent comes out, y'all. So I have to be really diligent about the pace of speech that I use as well. One more tidbit. If this is a voicemail, they need to call you back, right? So they're going to need a really important thing, your phone number. Do not assume that they're just going to know it from their caller ID that everybody has. I am still super old school. I'm going to go grab a pen and a paper, and I'm going to write down your name, and I'm going to write down your number, and I'm probably going to write down why you called. So make sure all of that is in there for them to make it easy. Remember, you're inviting them to a discussion here. You're inviting them to talk with you. Make it easy for them to follow through on that. Now, one last tiny thing. Practice. Did I mention practice? That's actually the hardest part of this. And what I would encourage you to do is continue to record yourself, call some folks, record again, call some folks, record again. You're going to dial this in more and more and more and more. But you really do need that feedback of what it sounds like. And nobody's going to hear it the same way that you do. So you need to listen to it and make sure, yep, that's the message I want people hearing. Or, yep, that's the me that I want them to know. This is your personal brand slogan. You want people to really be able to articulate this when you're not in the room. So you want to make sure it's exactly the way you want it to sound. Now, when I do this in trainings and I do this in workshops, I have people sit and say it to one another 5 times in a row. And I have them do it 5 times in a row without looking at their piece of paper, because something kind of magical happens at the 5th time. At the 5th time, you actually stop being salesperson number 47 and you kind of become yourself again. So maybe try that exercise too. And you could just sit and say it for yourself 5 times in a row before you make that first outbound call. Now, differentiating statements are not just for phone calls. And in fact, you're mostly going to use this in email, would be my guess. Email is the language of our business world these days. So make sure you have written versions of this as well that sound like you. Again, I'm very casual in my conversation. So I use words like let's chat, even in my email invitations to prospective clients and clients. So practice the written aspects of this too. And then there's a couple other versions. Social media. You want to make sure that's a little bit different than your email written version. And if you're using video email, you also want to make sure that you have a video version of this. So there's a lot of different ways. Now, do you have one differentiating statement at the end of the day? Absolutely not. And I know you're sitting there going, wait a second, Dr. Cindy, you just told us this formula. You just told us exactly what it has to say. It has to be our personal brand. That's true. However, you're not calling on robots. You're not networking with robots. You're trying to master connection out there in the world. And the key is to know what's going to be in it for the other person. So step 2 of that formula is the treat. That's going to change depending on who you call on. The superpower that you choose to highlight may change depending on what the treat is. So if you have 15 people to call, you actually might have 15 versions of this. And let's just face it, if you're prospecting, you might have 50 versions of it because you're going to have different versions each time you reach out. So I encourage you to go back to what I said earlier about not having a script. This isn't a script in any way, shape, or form. It's a story. It's the way that you want to be known. And that formula is simply a guideline. I would encourage you also, you can even put those 4 bullet points on a little Post-it note and have it in front of you so that it's not a script. It's just the bullet points to remind you, who are you, the treat, your superpowers, and then the ask. But again, practice, practice, practice. And as you're doing this and you're bringing it to life, it's really about developing your story so that others can tell it. And it's focusing on how you add value to the folks around you. This is another thing where in your mastering connections, you're going to leverage your fans because they're going to be able to go tell this story in a more masterful way. They're going to have a new story to tell versus, hey, so-and-so's really cool at their job and they're an awesome person. They're going to be able to tell what the treat is. And that's very, very special. And it makes it so that they are singing your chorus and sharing it with others. And so another thing that can help you in this is if you're really struggling with truly differentiating yourself and embracing what your own superpowers are, think about the expertise areas that you have. Are you really good at a specific niche of your organization or of your industry? Are you really good at a specific way of communicating? Look at some of those pieces. Get as granular as you want to or need to just get a version of this together. And once you have a version of this together, I think you'll be surprised how easy it becomes over time to shift it on the fly. So focus on what you bring to the table, but most importantly, how it helps another person. Because remember, you're depending on other people to tell your story. So be sure it's a good one. And make sure that they're telling the chorus that you want sung out in the world. I cannot wait to hear all of your success stories. And one of my most favorite things to do when I'm talking about differentiating statements is I love to hear people's differentiating statements. So reach out, share those with me, and I wish you all the best in making the world to understand your superpowers.
What a wonderful presentation by Dr. Cindy. Record your 30 seconds. I love it. No more, I'm your one-stop shop, okay? So for those of you that just joined us from Kenya and Africa, you. And if you have been with us since this morning, you're on your way to earn your Master Connector certification. All you need to do is to make sure you participate in 5 sessions such as this and 5 individual one-to-one meetup. So check out the tutorial videos on the Master Connector certification, and I'll see you shortly as we prepare to hear from our founder, Dr. Ivan Meissner.